We're back with more IGN Live at E3 2019. We've got the Ubisoft press conference starting in just moments, but while we wait, we've got a very special treat for you Double Fine fans. Since the original Psychonauts was released 14 years ago, fans have been begging for a full-fledged sequel, and now they're finally getting one. Please welcome my esteemed IGN colleague, fellow Psychonauts fan, Jonathan Dornbush. Wait your turn, and we're not getting to you. Oh. And from Double Fine Studios, Tim Schafer.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you to me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I also, we're going to get into Psychonauts 2, but you also just treated us to the story of Double Fine, the name, where you got the name. I thought that was so interesting.
Oh, driving over the Golden Gate Bridge, there was a sign that said Double Fine Zone, and I thought it looked like a great billboard. For the whole city was a Double Fine Zone, as it is.
You own San Francisco now.
We do.
We do.
Tell us about Psychonauts 2. I know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been super exciting to work on a sequel, even though it's been many, many years since the first game. It is set in the next day. So, Psychonauts Rhombus of Ruin, which is a VR game that we made to tell the story in between. It comes between it, so it's maybe 2 or 3 days later. But this game starts right away where the first game left off with Truman Zanotto, the head of the Psychonauts. By the way, maybe I should explain what the Psychonauts is. Psychonauts is a game about a young acrobat and a psychic named Raz who can jump into people's minds and explore their psyches, and everything you see is the manifestations of that person's mental world. And you help them fight their demons and wrestle with their nightmares and things like that. And at the end of the first game, everything is great. You become a Psychonaut, which is an international spy organization that uses psychic powers to do espionage. So they're very powerful super spies. Raz becomes one of them. And then the head of the Psychonauts is kidnapped, Truman Zanotto, and they fly off in this jet to rescue him, kind of a Back to the Future ending, and that's the end of the first game. 14 years later, they actually go on the rescue mission. Into the Rhombus of Ruin, and they rescue Truman Zanotto. And then Psychonauts 2 picks up with them bringing him back to headquarters. So Raz has always wanted to be a Psychonaut, so now he gets to go to Psychonauts headquarters and see this great international spy organization in their home element. And he finds out there's all this bad stuff going on. There's a mole in the organization. Oh, no. There's a secret psychic villain who they thought was dead, who someone is trying to bring back to life, and Raz has to actually help this organization survive that he was always dreaming of joining. And what you see in this trailer, it's a spoiler because I'm going to give you a spoiler because actually we kind of fake you out to think you're in the real world, but it turns out you're in the mental world, and you're trying to do a mission which is going to trick Dr. Lobato, who was the kind of villain in the first game, to tell him who hired him. You want to find his boss. And so you go into his world and you tell him he's one employee of the year. You go into his mind, create this office space where you tell him he's one employee of the year and just has to get a permission slip signed by his boss. And so that's what the whole first level of the game is trying to find out who his boss is. As this office space starts to degrade and fall apart as he starts to figure out what you're up to.
And that's kind of what we're all seeing right now?
Yeah, this is the fake office space where they're all wearing they don't usually wear office gear.
It was so jarring in the trailer yesterday seeing Raz in a suit. I'm so used to his sort of iconic costume that he has from the first game.
And this is Dr. Lobato, who's a mad scientist and dentist who steals people's brains in the first game. And now he's kind of nice now, but he's still a little kooky.
I usually double check before I get a new dentist. I make sure they're not a mad scientist.
You want them not to pull out your brain, because if you're out with
just
gas,
stick to the teeth.
They legally have to tell you it's the law, so that works.
Are you a mad scientist?
Yeah. So I mean, the gameplay is action adventure platformer. You have combat with you actually fight people's demons and wrestle with their nightmares, and you use your psychic powers. And the first game had a lot of psychic powers like telekinesis, pyrokinesis, and we're adding some new powers. And in this demo, you're mostly seeing the powers from the first game reimagined to be more useful in combat. Okay. You'll see people using telekinesis to grab objects in the room and throw them at other people and blast people in the air, and not people, but monsters.
So most of the powers from the first game are returning?
Yeah, most of the powers from the first game are returning, and they're all enhanced and improved. And then there are a few new powers. Will be, each level usually has a new power to unleash.
Do you have those powers from the beginning, or is it a situation where you've forgotten them and have to earn them back again?
You get a few of them back right away. Most of the powers you had in the first game, you'll get back over the course of the first level.
Oh, okay.
Here comes here's Dr. Lobato. We're about to catch him. He can't get away. Surely he Oh, no. What's going on?
I was curious about the dreamscapes for this game because obviously, for me, playing the first game, it was so memorable to jump into all those different mental scapes of all these people. And one of my favorites was always the sort of disco roller disco that you're going through. Can you talk about any of the dreamscapes?
No.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Well, the Mia's dance party. Mia is back in the game, but the idea is that each level is almost like a different art style, whole different feeling, and sometimes a different way of playing the game. That will change, but there's some. It's all new brains you're going into, and so they will have radically different looks to them. I don't want to spoil them all now. But Dr. Lobato's mind, you can see here, is that mix of the office space that the Psychonauts tried to impose, but then his love of dentistry shows through, and you're about to see here's a little bit of a transitional scene. You can play with time and space and size, and then teeth starts to show up. Strange arrival of teeth.
His dentist brain is really showing through there.
Yeah.
I was curious, is there, obviously not wanting to spoil the dreamscapes, maybe this is another spoiler, but can you talk at all, is there sort of like a central hub area like the camp in the first game?
Yeah, the headquarters, where they call the Mother Lobe.
Okay.
The head of the Psychonauts is it's a big, nice headquarters in the middle of a quarry, and you'll be able to explore the outside spaces and the interior spaces. We wanted to show something. The Psychonauts we always imagined to be this, like a Man from U.N.C.L.E. or something, very organized but psychic. So seeing that kind of a space and being able to explore it and its secrets is a big part of the game, and getting side missions, but also moving forward through all the brains to find out who the mole is and find out whether or not they're going to bring this old villain back to life.
So how's the game structured? Is it linear, where you're moving through one level at a time, or is it a little more open, where you can?
Well, there's a hub, and then there are these levels in it. So when you're in the hub, you can do different things in a more non-linear way. But and a lot of the brains are laid out. You can do them in different orders within, and then sometimes it goes back together to open up again. So it kind of goes back and forth between those two modes. You can see how the combat here, you're using the psychic powers a lot more in combat. You have a psychic kind of punch, but also you're burning things and you're blasting things and you're pulling things apart.
How much of a collectible sense is in this one? Because I was always obsessed with collecting every fragment and everything, unlocking all of the emotional baggage that I could find. All that. How much of that is returning in this game? Are you adding to that? Are there any new sort of collectibles?
Yeah, there will be some new collectibles. But the figments are one of my favorite things that come back, which are parts of the world that are not quite there on 3D. They're like a 2D drawing that you pick up as you roll through the space, and they all tell stories. So we want to have collectible. There's a figment of a tooth.
Oh yeah.
And the figments can tell a little bit about the mental state of there's a dental pick, and there's some chattering teeth. We want to have collectibles that weren't just like a banana. Not that there's anything wrong with bananas, but like
Great for potassium.
Each one actually helps fulfill the narrative goals too. Like tell a little bit about the person's brain you're in, and be different. We have vaults. There are these mental vaults that people's secrets are locked in, and you get a little bit of story elements when you pick those up too. And a few more new ones that we'll talk about later.
When the time is right.
When the time is right. And there's some of these are throwbacks to the first game or Rhombus of Ruin. So that house was in Rhombus of Ruin, and just little secrets people might notice.
How are you thinking about onboarding new players that haven't played Psychonauts before?
Yeah, and we're trying to make it so you might feel a little confused, but a little confusion is always part of a Psychonauts game because they are supposed to be surprising and trippy. But we need to set up the basic story elements, and we're doing it so that you don't have to play the first game to play the second game, obviously. But we're trying to incorporate that in the first level dialogue.
Yeah.
We might have a previously on.
Gotcha.
Ooh, I'll take
That's
that.
perfect.
In terms of the story itself, for me, when playing through the first Psychonauts, I was so endeared to all the characters so much that when I lost my save in the final world, I played through the game immediately again because I really, really wanted to see it through.
How'd you lose your save?
I don't know. It just disappeared off the PlayStation one day. But I'm so curious about the story now that you have with Psychonauts 2. How much of this is like brand new over time that you've kind of imagined? Did you have some of this in mind when you were making the first game?
I mean, it's a mix of both. Because we had, when I finished the first game, I had these ideas. There are these little hints of things that are like, these little stems of narrative ideas in the first game that I just never got to finish. And so bringing them back, it gets into, we bring back to stuff that we hint at about Raz's family in his past. Like this curse. His whole family was cursed to die in water, and that's just kind of dropped. By the way, my whole family was cursed to die in water, but we never explained why that happened or what that means to his family, and so that's going to be a major plot point in this game. And the Psychonauts themselves, some of the back story of how the organization came together, what it was originally meant to be, how it's kind of changed its mission over the years comes into it too. And some of that is hinted in the Ford Cruller character in the first game. So there's some little elements that people, we don't want to require that you played the first game, obviously, but we want to put stuff in there. So if you're playing the first game, some people play it obsessively, observantly, like they notice a lot of stuff. And we want to we want to reward those players by putting in stuff. We want to reward that attention to detail.
Yeah.
And people who played it twice after they lost their save game.
And then again when it came out as a PS1 remaster.
Wow.
Yeah, I've played it several times. I love that first game. I'm curious a little bit, of course, we're talking to you after Microsoft Studios has announced you've joined the family there.
Oh, did you see the press conference?
Oh, yes, we may have watched it.
Yeah.
I was curious for you with Psychonauts in general. It seems like a bit of a full circle moment to me with obviously the first game was going to be published by Microsoft, and then that didn't end up happening.
No, it didn't.
But how is it joining the Microsoft family now and having that backing? Still having Psychonauts 2 be multi-platform, of course. But
it's great. I mean, our company got founded by signing our publishing contract with Microsoft for Psychonauts 1. That's how we got our first funding. And so it is, and they were unable to finish that game, sadly, and they were so sad about it. They, for all these years, have just said, how can we finish a Psychonauts game? And now they're going to get to. So good. It's good. I'm glad those kids got a chance to finish their Psychonauts game. No, we've worked with them, even though that had its own story, and then we worked with them on Iron Brigade and Once Upon a Monster and Connect Party. Involved them obviously a lot, and so we've had a great relationship all thes years, and so it has a sense of poetry and symmetry to it that it's coming back to the second game, and it's a huge. A moment of, I feel like, a creative inspiration in a way. Like it's a big business deal, so it makes big business. But it's the idea that we at Double Fine can just focus on creativity and ideas and inspiration instead of like deals and deals and deals and like taking a game around, pitching it. Like that's a big hunk of our brains, that we have to think. Or for some of us at the studio, and now just kind of dedicating that part of your brain to like ideas and gameplay and fun, and that's a huge relief.
Well, Tim, thank you for joining us. I'm so glad that Psychonauts is finally coming back. It looks awesome.
Awesome. And Rad's coming out.
And Rad is coming out. That game also looks awesome.
It's an awesome game.
Can't wait to find out more about all of those games, Psychonauts, Rad. Hey, Max, what's coming up next?
Why, Damon, I thought you'd never ask. Coming up next, it's Ubisoft's E3 press conference. Will those raving rabbits finally team up with Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six? Probably not, but it's fun to dream. Let's take a look back at what Ubisoft's been up to for the last year.